All right, coming in at number 43 on the Locked On Senators NHL draft rankings, we are heading to the Western Hockey League, to the Portland Winterhawks, where we find another right shot defenseman, another trend we found so far in our top 50, and that is Max Psenicka, who's 6'4", 185 pounds, turned 18 this past January.
Yes, Sanichka is a really interesting prospect for us because he started out in his home country of Czechia in the U20 league, where in 20 games he had 3 goals, 8 assists, 11 points. Not bad for a defenseman, 11 points in 20 games. And he got bumped up to the pro league, so spent a little time playing up against men in the Czechia league, where in 16 games he had 2 goals, no assists. And then in January, he comes over to the WHL, but it's not the Kelowna Rockets that had his draft rights. They traded his draft rights to the Portland Winterhawks in October. So he ends up going to Portland, where in 24 games, he has 1 goal, 6 assists for 7 points. And they had a pretty successful season. So that gave him some even more playing time, as he got 18 games in the playoffs where he had 1 goal, 7 assists, good for 8 points. So decent points wise, as he had more points in 18 playoff games than he did in 24 regular season games. However, that plus minus dipping into a territory you don't really love at minus 14.
Yeah, and we can say a part of that was a 10-4 loss against Spokane, where he was -4 in that game. They did make it to the third round of the playoffs, where they were swept, and the scores were 10-4, 6-5, 8-5, and 6-4.
Oh boy.
So, very offensive series, that one. But if you look overall at his season, I think that it's tough to evaluate a player that changes not only leagues, but countries mid-season. And he did get a lot more opportunity with that. When he was playing over in the Czech Pro League, he was averaging about 10 to 12 minutes. It was a limited depth role. And then he's all of a sudden top 4. And something interesting to note about Psenicka as well is, as a right shot defenseman, he was often playing the left side in Portland. So versatility is something that teams very much covet at the National Hockey League level. And when you see that alongside a raw toolkit of a frame that at 6'4", he's not going to be playing the NHL at 185 pounds. So how much lean mass can he add on to that to add a physical element to his game? Because this one I'll stand up for. Even though he's that big, he's not the most physical player. He's going to lead with his stick. He's going to be a guy that's trying to defend with his gap control. And he's got to get to his mobility a little bit better as well. From what I saw, there's some pivots that are maybe a little bit slower. And again, I have trouble holding too much against him, but you got to evaluate from what you've been able to see so far. So to me, I'm not saying boom or bust, but this upcoming year, it's almost one where you wish you could see a full season in the WHL before drafting him. But teams don't have that luxury. They're going to have to make a decision on just how much they feel that tools can become a handyman at the next level.
Yeah, and I think he has good all-round skills, Ross. Like, this would be a guy where I wouldn't say like the classic like high full floor, low ceiling, or low floor, high ceiling. I would say he has a tight window of what his potential could be, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. He's got good passing skills to keep plays alive. He's got a hard slap shot. I really like the way he plays with the puck on the blue line. Lots of poise, kind of painting the line, looking for his best options, scanning, trying to figure out the play. But one thing to note, Ross, is the Hockey Writers, which is a site I use for a lot of these guys, so shout out to them. They were mentioning that next season, the Winterhawk decor is going to look a lot different, with 3 or 4 guys possibly and probably moving on to other leagues or other teams or what have you. So Psenicka could really have an elevated role next year, where that's where we would get the opportunity to see what he really can do. But however, like you mentioned, he's going to get drafted this year. So that's not going to do teams a whole lot of good when deciding whether to pick him. But a team that does pick him will get a better sense of evaluating what he actually could be or what he needs to work on.
And if you didn't get the sense from those box scores in the playoffs that I read off there, that plus minus that it wasn't great for Psenicka this year could also be contributed to the fact that these are their two goalies' save percentage.
Oh boy.
893 and 891. Looking like the 2023-24 Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, I mean, those are typical junior goalie numbers, though. Like most goalies in junior, I feel like are under a 900 save percentage just because the play is not as structured and there's just such elite, high, offensively talented guys that are just taking advantage. But yeah, it's not ideal.
For a team that finished fifth in the conference, that's a
Fair.
team that can definitely put the puck in the back of the other net as they're fishing it out of their own. Only 3 of our scouts actually ranked Psenicka, but when Elite Prospects ranks a defenseman that's this big at 34, you know there's got to be some factors at play there that make you kind of open your eyes and say, okay, what are they seeing there? Because that's a team of scouts that does their homework over at Elite Prospects. McKean's has him at 46 and Bob McKenzie at 55. Button, Wheeler, Pronman, and Sebastian at Locked On NHL Prospects have not ranked Psenicka. The playoff numbers, as you mentioned, are what they are, but what I do like about Psenicka is that he was able to get those extra games played to push his season totals in the WHL over 40 games. So he's going to be a lot more comfortable going into next season, and our scouts have him at an average rank of 45. Where do you have him on your Sens stars?
I give him 3 stars as well, Ross. Similar to Amico, big right shot defenseman that mostly plays a defensive game. I would say Psenicka is a little more two-way player than Amico is, but again, not the style of player I think the Ottawa Senators should be targeting. And I also have him as a middle of the second round draft pick. Who knows where he'll actually go, but I just, he's not in their range. And I don't think he's going to play on any special teams, PK or power play. So he's a nice player, but I just don't see high upside with him. So not a guy I think the Sens should target.
Out of the defensemen that we've covered so far, Charlie Trethewey, Simon Wang, Jacob Rombach, Carter Amico, and Max Psenicka, who's your top defenseman so far?
My top defenseman is Trethewey. I put him at 4 stars. Funny enough, I believe Trethewey and Amico were defense partners for the short amount of time.
Going to Boston University next year.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so those guys are going to be attached at the hip, but Trethewey is the guy so far that I've liked the most.
Okay, Max Psenicka comes in on our Locked On Senators NHL draft rankings at number 43.